The Beach Boys had an uncanny ability to write catchy pop songs that also contained complicated and unexpected elements. From their use of a theremin in Good Vibrations to the confusing chords and melody of God Only Knows, the Beach Boys demonstrated real musical maturity and complexity without sacrificing listenability. In this video, I want to explore a small little interesting musical mechanic that's sort of hidden in the verse of their #1 hit Kokomo. But before we dive into that, I need you to listen to these 4 notes. Now, out of this list of words, pick 2 that describes the feeling that those 4 notes give you. If you picked mystery or suspense, you're not alone. These 4 notes are known as a minor major 7th chord, and when played alone, they almost always elicit this sense of suspense and mystery. 4 little notes that can instantly transmit an emotion directly into your brain. Good composers will collect chords like this and memorize their emotional context, so whenever they're in need of that specific emotion, they can just call up the appropriate chord. But it's not just chord types that can transmit an emotion. Tempos themselves can create an emotional context all on their own. For example, faster tempos usually associate with anxiety or activity, whereas slower tempos can create the feeling of depression or lethargy. So what if we were looking to induce a more complicated emotion? Not just happy, sad, or mysterious, but something very specific, like relaxing on the beach with a coconut Mai Tai with babe by your side listening to sweet tunes, and translate that into 8 measures of music. Well, that's precisely what the Beach Boys did with this incredible set of chords. So let's take a look. The chord progression for the verse shows as follows. Now, if we write out the notes of each one of these chords, we can find a simple relationship hidden between them. The first chord contains the note C. The second chord contains the note right beneath it, B. And the third chord contains the note beneath that, B flat. And so on and so on and so on. This pattern of descending notes continues all the way until we get to the note F. In music, we call these notes chromatics, notes that are 1 half step or 1 note apart from each other. Now, normally we don't use chromatics unless we're writing about bumblebees or clowns. Here's what those notes sound like all on their own. And here's how those notes fit into the chord progression. Although this chromatic descent from C is barely audible on the surface, I think it has a profound effect on the emotional content of the chord progression. The use of falling notes has a subconscious effect on your brain, whether you like it or not. In the wise words of Harry Plinkett, you might not have noticed it, but your brain did. And I personally think it's a perfect musical counterpoint to instruments like these, playing underneath lyrics like these. Ultimately affecting your mood like a drug, putting you into a state of calming relaxation and pure euphoria. It's also worth noting that taking chromatic notes and cramming them into a chord progression and having them sound good isn't necessarily an easy task. There's a million ways to incorporate these descending notes into a chord progression, and most of them will sound bad. For example, here's the exact same chromatic descent staged through just regular minor chords, with nothing revolving around a specific key. As you can see, there's not much melody here. The reason that the Kokomo chord progression works is that it does revolve and stay very closely tied to the key of C major. And if we analyze the chords within this chord progression, we'll see that they're all just varieties of either secondary dominance or borrowed chords. So it goes without saying that music can make you feel a certain way. But it's pretty astounding at how efficient music can be at describing and translating very specific and nuanced emotions. I think another great example is the theme for Back to the Future. I describe it as scientific discovery tainted with uncertainty, yet overpowered by goodwill and triumph. All of that wrapped up in just a few chords and notes. Now, you don't have to know music theory to compose music that translates an emotion, but it certainly helps when you're trying to write complicated emotions like this. For me, music theory is only 1/2 of writing music, but making a listener feel a certain way takes almost 0 musical training. For example, you don't need a musician's help to teach you how to write a happy song. You can probably guess that you would use things like upbeat tempos, positive words, and happy-sounding instruments like the banjo or ukulele. And likewise, if you're writing a song about the devastating loss of a loved one or pet, you probably wouldn't use these exact same instruments, tempos, and words for the song.
My grandma Sue is dead. She got brain tumors in the back of her head, and now her body is gone. Her body is gone, gone, gone.
However, with zero knowledge of music theory, you're spending a lot of time trying to find a way to get the notes to work with each other and sound good. And ultimately, it'll act as a roadblock to getting your song done. So my advice is take the middle road. Be creative and use your own life experiences to help guide and inform your music composition choices. But maybe you should learn a little theory to help fit those complicated ideas into easy-to-consume packages. Or don't. That's fine too.
My grandma Sue is dead. She got brain tumors in the back of